In May 1940, French commanders believed they still had time. Time to redeploy, time to reinforce, time to think. They were wrong. In less than a week, a single German armored division would tear through northern France so fast that no one could accurately say where it was or where it would strike next. Reports contradicted each other. Phones went silent. Maps became obsolete almost as soon as they were unfolded. At the center of this chaos stood one man, Erwin Rommel. For decades, European armies had prepared for another war of trenches and slow attrition, concrete fortresses, fixed defenses, carefully planned lines. But Rommel rejected that logic entirely. What he unleashed was not simply speed, it was shock. Movement so relentless that it shattered not just defenses, but decision-making itself. His 7th Panzer Division advanced with such velocity that it seemed to exist in multiple places at once. 1 hour it was reported to the east. The next it was already behind Allied lines. Soldiers began to whisper a name that felt less like a unit and more like a haunting. The Ghost Division. Rommel led from the front, standing half exposed in his command vehicle, eyes locked on the horizon. He pushed men and machines beyond their limits, gambling everything on one principle: never stop. Every pause risked allowing the enemy to think, and thinking, Rommel knew, was the first step toward resistance. This was not merely a battle for territory, it was a race to overwhelm the human mind. As the Ghost Division surged deeper into France, reality itself seemed to bend. Allied units prepared defenses for an enemy that never arrived, because it had already passed them by. German tanks emerged from morning mist like mechanical phantoms. Engines growled low and constant, a sound that carried dread long before the first shell was fired. Strong points were bypassed. Entire battalions found themselves surrounded without ever having fired a shot. For French soldiers, the experience was surreal. They were ready to fight, ready to die, only to discover they were no longer part of the battle. Their fortifications, once symbols of security, became monuments to an outdated way of war. The landscape told its own story. Abandoned villages, tables still set for dinner, doors left open in panic. The air smelled of diesel, smoke, and churned earth. Tank treads clattered over cobblestone streets as civilians fled a threat they could not see, only feel. Rommel deliberately embraced chaos. At times, he cut his own communication lines, knowing that orders from cautious superiors would only slow him down. Isolated, aggressive, and constantly moving, he became a rogue force, unpredictable even to his own command. The Ghost Division was not large, but the fear it created was immense. Speed bred uncertainty, uncertainty bred panic, and panic spread faster than any tank. The breaking point did not come in a single decisive battle. It came when Allied commanders realized something far worse. The front no longer existed. As the Ghost Division reached the English Channel, it severed the Allied armies in two. British and French units scrambled to organize counterattacks, only to find that every time they aimed their guns, the enemy had already shifted, reappearing on their flank or behind them like a phantom. This was a massacre of morale. Generals trained in centuries of methodical warfare watched helplessly as their doctrines collapsed in real time. Carefully prepared plans meant nothing against an enemy who refused to follow the script. The numbers were staggering. Tens of thousands of Allied soldiers were captured in days, not through annihilation, but through disintegration, units surrendering because cohesion, communication, and hope had simply vanished. Yet beneath the legend lay a darker truth. German crews were exhausted, running on adrenaline and stimulants, sleeping in brief, stolen moments. Vehicles broke down. Supply lines stretched dangerously thin. The Ghost Division was winning, but it was also burning itself alive to maintain the pace. For French civilians, the collapse came too fast to comprehend. A nation fell not with a final stand, but with a stunned silence, denied even the dignity of prolonged resistance. At the edge of the channel, Rommel stood looking out over the sea, having outrun not only his enemies, but the limits of conventional warfare itself. When the dust settled, the Ghost Division had carved its name into history. Its victory proved a terrifying lesson. In modern war, speed could be deadlier than firepower. Rommel's success validated a new way of fighting, one that prioritized psychological collapse over physical destruction, a form of warfare that spread confusion faster than bullets and broke nations before they fully understood what was happening to them. But victory carried a curse. The methods perfected in France would be unleashed across Europe, feeding a cycle of total war that would eventually consume millions, including many of the men who pioneered it. Rommel himself would later find no refuge from the regime he served so effectively. The story ends quietly. A rusting Panzer tank lies half buried in the sand of a French beach. Waves crash against corroded steel. The tide slowly erases the tracks of a division that once moved too fast to be stopped. Yet the ghosts remain. They linger in the silence of the French fields, reminding us that the most dangerous enemies are often not the ones we see, but the ones who arrive before we realize the war has already been lost. History is not just written by the victors, it is remembered by those who choose to look closer. Subscribe and keep walking among the ghosts of the past.